I had known for a while, little signs, nothing blatant, but enough for the picture to come together. It was a whisper in the back of my mind that something was off, a gut feeling that gnawed at me with every late night and flimsy excuse. My wife Haley thought she was clever, thought she could fool me with tales of work deadlines and team dinners. But the truth? I'd seen it unfold right before my eyes. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was about finally realizing how much I'd let slide and how ready I was to take it all back. My plan was set in motion, and there was no turning back now. That Friday night, we attended a company party. Haley spent the evening chatting with coworkers, but I watched her carefully. And when I saw her glance at Evan, their eyes meeting a little too long, the faint smile flickered across her face, I knew I hadn't been imagining things. I saw Diane, Evan's wife, glaring at them from across the room, and it made my blood boil to think we were in the same boat. I stayed quiet, waiting for the right moment to strike, but inside, I was already preparing for the fallout. On the drive home, a strange sense of relief washed over me. Haley had no idea that her late work nights were nothing but a poorly veiled facade, and Jeff, my arrogant boss, was too wrapped up in his own dirty secrets to even notice what was brewing. I had my evidence. All the little breadcrumbs Haley thought she'd hidden so well were there in my hands. It was a matter of days now. The days after the party were a ticking time bomb. Monday morning, Jeff stumbled into work, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Rumors were swirling about him and Diane, about ethical misconduct and personal failings. Every time his phone buzzed, he'd flinch, and each glance in my direction met with the coldest, most innocent look I could muster. I wanted him to squirm, to wonder if I knew. And Haley? She came home late again Monday night. By Tuesday, she was still clinging to the work deadlines excuse, too confident in my supposed cluelessness. But this time, I'd planned to let her sit in her lie a little longer, to let her feel the weight of the game she was playing. Wednesday night, around midnight, she slipped back in, her face tired, and the lingering scent of cologne that wasn't hers clinging to her clothes. She barely mumbled a, "Hey," before slipping into the shower. As I leaned against the bathroom door, I waited for her to finish brushing her teeth. "Another late night, huh?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. She hesitated, glancing at me in the mirror, her toothbrush hovering midair. "Yeah, sorry," she mumbled, forcing a laugh. "Work's been crazy, you know." "Oh, I know," I replied, letting a hint of amusement slip. "You've been working so hard." I watched her face closely. There it was, the flicker of nervousness behind that tired smile. But I didn't pull out the evidence then. I wanted her to feel the growing tension, to realize she was losing control. The next day, I prepared the final piece of my plan. I printed out the photos of her with Evan, the texts she thought she'd hidden, and even the location records. Everything went into a neat manila envelope that I placed on our coffee table, right where she'd see it the second she walked in. I wanted her to feel that moment of dread before she even opened it. Around midnight, I heard her key in the lock. I stayed out of sight, listening as she entered, her heels clicking across the floor. She froze, and I knew she'd spotted the envelope. There was a pause, the sound of paper shuffling as she flipped through the evidence, and then a soft, strangled gasp. "Randall!" Her voice trembled as she called for me. I stepped into the room, crossing my arms, watching her clutch those damning papers. "Late nights, Haley? Work deadlines? Really?" She looked up, caught like a deer in headlights. I can explain." "Oh, please." I couldn't hide the sarcasm in my voice. The pictures explained plenty. I watched as her expression crumbled, shame and anger fighting for control on her face. "Why did you—" she started, her voice breaking. "Why did I do that? Figure out you've been sneaking around with Evan? Get tired of hearing your pathetic excuses?" I held her gaze, letting her see the resolve she had broken in me. "This is over, Haley. Do you want him? Great, go for it. But you're not going to play me anymore." I walked out, leaving her standing there, clutching the evidence of her betrayal. That night, I crashed at my friend Matt's place. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and offered his couch. It was a relief to be out of that house, away from the lies and excuses. The next morning, I woke to a flurry of texts from Haley, long rambling messages trying to explain herself, begging for a chance to talk. I didn't respond. Her words meant nothing to me now. At work, things took a satisfying turn. By lunchtime, rumors about Jeff's misconduct had spread like wildfire. Diane had apparently gone straight to HR, armed with everything she needed to make sure Jeff's days at the company were numbered. By that afternoon, he was called into a meeting with HR. He stormed out of the office, red-faced and furious, his gaze landing on me as he hissed, "I'm sure you think this is funny." I just raised an eyebrow. Funny? I'd call it fitting. For a moment, I thought he'd take a swing at me, but he stormed off instead. By the next morning, his desk was cleared out. The office buzzed with gossip, and each time someone asked if I knew anything, I shrugged and gave them a knowing smile. A week after our showdown, Haley showed up at Matt's place, her face red-eyed, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "Randall, please," she whispered. "Just give me a chance to explain." I crossed my arms, keeping my expression cold. "Explain what, Haley? The late nights? The work dinners? Or maybe the fact that you thought I was too dumb to catch on?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing, not pity, not anger. Just a strange sense of detachment. "It wasn't like that," she stammered, her voice trembling. I was confused. Things got out of hand. "Yeah, I'd say they did." She wiped her eyes, looking desperate. "But it doesn't have to end like this, Randall. We can work through it, can't we?" I shook my head. "Work through what, Haley? You made your choice and now I'm making mine. We're done." I held my ground, and eventually, she nodded, defeated. The divorce went through faster than I expected. Haley tried a few more times to reach out, but I didn't budge. I wanted a clean break, and I got it. From what I heard, Evan lost interest in her quickly, once she was single and no longer a forbidden thrill. She gambled, and she lost. Simple as that. In the end, I moved into a new apartment across town. It wasn't much, just a small, quiet place, but it was mine, free from the lies and betrayals that had lurked around every corner. Every now and then, I'd run into Megan from work, and we'd grab a drink, laughing about the craziness of office life. Each time she asked how I was holding up, I'd answer, "Better," and each time I meant it a little more. I'd spent years trying to be someone else's version of enough. But now I was just me, and that, I realized, was more than enough.